Hey, B.
Hola, hola. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, let me just stop and take some time to thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. You know, I always love talking to you and I just so appreciate you. So thank you so much for doing this.
It is my honest pleasure.
Aww.
So what you've done for me, this is nothing. This is nothing.
I didn't even pay you to say that part. No, just kidding.
No.
Well, I'm not paying you to do this interview, so I'm not paying you to say any of it.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. So, B, we met back in March. From what I can remember, we met when I hosted my very first virtual inner child healing retreat.
Yes.
But I think, well, you tell, how did you come to know me?
Well, I think back in February, and I can't remember the dates, someone was having a week-long event, Moon Moms something. I can't remember the name. And there was a whole bunch of people talking and helping people out. And that's where I met Emily Aarons.
Mm-hmm.
And Emily Aarons was talking about her group and all, and I was so excited. I was like, oh, that sounds great. But then I noticed that her group, I think, is more for people who have their own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's what it was. And I was like, well, I don't have my own business. She had mentioned something about inner child healing. And I was like, inner child healing? I said, okay, because a friend of mine many, many moons ago has said to me, you know, you got to work on your inner child. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I never paid attention. So, but, you know, I've been going through a lot of stuff in my mind and like I've been stopping myself from a lot of things. And I was like, what is it? What is it? So then when Emily had said something about inner child healing and that Miss Andrea was going to host it and that she's a wonderful friend to Emily and she adores you very much, I was like, And then I found out you were having it and I started reading it and I was like, shouldn't I? So I spoke to my partner and she was like, babe, this is for you.
Yeah.
Done. And then we met March 29th.
Yes, I love that because I'm always curious as to how people, you know, find my work specifically because the work that I do is not just for anybody. It's like, and this is not to say anything about anyone, but I work with like people who are high achievers and by nature, they are very strong-willed, determined, and on top of that, because part of being a high achiever is that when people asking for help is a perceived weakness to high achievers.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
I'm always curious when people decide to work with me because I know that they're in and of itself, them deciding to work with me, the hurdles that they've had to overcome because it was like, well, if I ask for help, it's, you know.
Yes, I'm weak.
Right.
I don't ask for help.
Yeah, right.
Well, and unfortunately, I've suffered a lot of loss in many, many ways because as I don't ask for help. I didn't ask for help. Because my idea is I'm strong, I'm a woman, I'm intelligent, I can do this stuff by myself. I don't need help. Yeah. And then I just dug deeper and deeper. And you know, it's a downward spiral when you don't ask for help.
Yes. It 100% is because I know that I've been there myself, being the one that everybody looks up to, take care of everybody, you know, being superwoman. And one of the things I will always remember that you said, and I don't know if when you said it, but I just remember you saying that you were known as Captain Save-A-Ho. So that's who you were.
Yes, that's who I was.
Yes, before the Inner Child Healing Retreat, you saw yourself as Captain Save-A-Ho. And for those who don't know what that terminology means, break that down for us real quick.
Okay, well, I hung up my cape. I'm retired.
Yes.
Captain Save-A-Ho is the person who is always looking to help their friends, their neighbor, their family, a stranger, a pet, a dog. We help everyone and we give all of ourselves to these people. But it's because we're so hoping that they will become our hero and save us.
Yes.
That is what Captain Save-A-Ho is.
Wow.
Saving everyone, expecting someone to save me. I was looking for a savior since the age of 6. I was looking for my hero. It's 40 something years of, retired.
Yeah. So wow, that's like deep. And I know that there are so many people who, once you describe who Captain Save-A-Ho is, I know there are so many people who are like, oh yeah, she hung up her cape, she retired it, but I took it.
Yes. There's a lot of them out there. Up anymore.
Right, exactly. You're not in that number no more. That's not you anymore. So if you don't mind, and again, you don't have to go into detail. So what happened? So for those of you who don't know, the virtual inner child healing retreat is 5 days, a total of 5 days, Monday through Friday. And we go live together in a private Zoom group where for 3 of those days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we have like a really deep healing meditation. And each day that we're live, there's a theme. So day 1 is discovering who that inner child is, like who is what age or what period, what era in your life wants to come forward, because usually that first day or first person who comes forward, that's who's like most impacted in the present moment. And then the next time we're live, which is Wednesday, we figure out how to talk to that inner child. What do we say? It's like, okay, so now we know who it is. We know that there is some inner child work that needs to be done. Well, what do we say, right? How do we talk to them going forward? And then the last day, which is that Friday, we talk about, or we discover, or we actually release the inner child. And we found out that sometimes the inner child in us, it's ready to go because we've healed or dealt with in this moment, because there's always healing that needs to be done. Yes. Sometimes they're ready to go, and then sometimes they're not. It's like, well, there's still work to be done. And so on that last day, we kind of figure out how do we release if they need to be released, but then how do we maintain the relationship? And then on Tuesday and Thursday, it's more integrating. So Monday is the live, Tuesday we integrate, there's worksheets, Wednesday is another live, Thursday we integrate, and then Friday we release, or at least put a tie or something on that inner child. So now that everybody knows like what the format is like, if you, and again, only share as much as you want or as least as you want, like what happened during those 5 days that really caused you or set in motion this idea of, in your words, retiring your cape?
Well, it's funny. Like I said, I was in a back and forth whether I should sign up for the hits, for the virtual inner child. And I was like, and when I decided, we're going to do this, I said, okay. But again, I've never done this work before. Right. Ever. I've never, like I spoke to you before, never with nothing right. Deals with my inner child, because I spent almost 50 years not thinking about it, because you don't think about it, you don't feel it, it's not going to bother you, you just keep it moving. There's no time for that.
Yep.
So, but what I learned is the more I didn't think about it,
yes,
the more it was impacting my life.
Yes.
And I was like, the more it's like, and it's like, okay. So the first day we decided, and you said we were going to like meditate and relax and stuff. I have never done that. Never, ever. And at the beginning, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to see. Yeah, I'm going to meet someone. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. Let's do this. And I sat there and I mean, I love you. You're so patient and you're so soothing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is nice. And I was like, okay, the most I'm going to get out, I'm going to relax. And I'm going to be all right. And oh my God. Oh my God. Ay, Dios mío. The first me that I saw was my 2-year-old self. And it struck me because I was like, oh my God, because I'm listening to what you're saying and I still see this little girl and I can even tell you the fabric of the sofa on. And that is the apartment when I was 2 years old. I tell you, I know how it feels. I haven't thought about none of that, but I was like, then I found this strange. It was like, wow, my 2-year-old self, I was a happy kid.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I had to ask for forgiveness for the 2-year-old. My 2-year-old had a message for me. And the biggest message, which is the question that I've had for 51 years, is that I did not believe, not even an ounce of my being believed that my mother loved me. I did not, nothing. I had no inkling, nothing. And this beautiful little girl who I thought was the most beautiful little girl I've ever seen in my life is me. And I don't see myself in that manner. So I see her. And she is so loving and so caring. And the only thing she would say is, she loves you. She loves you. I'm like, but mommy, and I'm trying to, and all she would say is, she loves you. Those are the only words that came out of her mouth, was that she loves you. And she sat on my lap and she put her head on my bosom and I felt love from this child. Yeah. And when it was time to go, she was okay with me going. Yeah. And I was like, she loves me. She loves me. And that's the only thing that made sense to me. Yeah. And that was the first step in me starting to think, hey, maybe my mom does love me. I'm a fighter. Right. I was like, yeah, okay. But my baby girl, myself, I came and you blew me out of the water. And I think you saw that because I was a mess. I was a mess.
You weren't a mess.
Ever. I was a mess. I was a beautiful mess, but I was a mess. I was a mess. I had to lay down. I was like, oh my God. That's why I tell you, I am, and I know you always say you don't do anything, you give us the space, but the space is what we need. And I love you. I've never met you, but I love you more than you would ever know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm supposed to be interviewing you and I'm over here crying too.
But it's a beautiful, it's such a healing cry. Yes. I'm not crying because I'm sad. Right. It's just, I'm so grateful and I have so much love that's just how it's coming. But
Yes, I know. I always tell y'all are not supposed to make me cry. I gotta be the strong one. No. I'm so kidding.
Listen. And our first one knocked me out. But our second one, the second meeting we had when we go back in to see, and I was like, I wonder if the little girl's gonna come back. I don't know if you remember, but the person, not the person, because it's me. Mm-hmm. My person that comes to me was me when I was like about 12. Mm. And I don't know if you remember that I told you that she was in black and white like a negative. Mm. She was in negative form. And I went to her and she wouldn't. She didn't, what, you want to talk to me? Mm-hmm. Nothing. She was like she was very much against it. Mm-hmm. And no matter how much I said I was sorry, it was like, mm-hmm. She kept saying, why didn't you take me away? Take me away. Mm-hmm. And then I told her I was sorry, and I was like, oh my God. And then it's like that plus the little girl telling me she loves me, and the time in between when we have to do the writing, and yeah, you have to really be honest with yourself. Yes. In order for this to work, you got to be honest. 100%. You can't be like, oh yeah, no. We're not painting a pretty picture. No. The ending is going to be a masterpiece, right? We got to get them brushes dirty. Yes. Because that's just how it is. Yes. But, it was like, wow. And I know that's a big part of me. And this is why I tell you that I was hurting myself more than healing myself when I kept, shoving it down my throat. Yes. A lot of people, I'm still friends with people when I was 5 years old. I mean, I have really close friends. And their parents and everyone used to tell me, oh, you're so good. With all that's happened to you, you're such a good girl. You didn't go to the streets. You didn't get into drugs. You're such a good girl. And I've always said, oh, that's nothing. I didn't go through anything. Everybody goes through that. Oh, please. And I don't know if the right word is shortchanged it, or I minimized it. I minimized, exactly. I minimized all the pain and suffering that I had gone through because I didn't want to think about it. Yes. Oh, it's nothing. Yeah, whatever. Yes. And the pains and the struggles and stuff started really terribly at the age of 12. Because I don't mind sharing, because some people are worried about sharing their life, but to me, I want to share because I don't know if there's someone out there that might need to hear. Yes. So I grew up in a home. It was just my mom, and life was hard for my mom. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, she turned to drugs and alcohol and everything that happens with that. So my mom became very verbally abusive, physically abusive, mentally abusive. So all that started 6-7 years old, but the molestations from men who would come to the house started around the age of 12. That's when that outside impact. I say outside because it wasn't my mom. Yes. Getting everything from my mom is inside, is home. Right. Having these men from the outside come is outside. So that started around the age of 12. Mm-hmm. So I kept no, it's nothing. No, it's nothing. And for a long time, like many do, I blamed myself. Yes. So I should have done something. I should have done this. I should have done that. But even though you were only a kid, you just didn't know. I was a child, and that's something that Miss Andrea taught me, that I was a child. I can think with my adult mentality. Yes. For a child. Yes. I wasn't an adult at 6, at 12. Right. I was still a child. Yes. But I'm looking back. In hindsight, I'm an old bag now. I can't. Right. I should have done this. Blah, 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 blah. No. Right. So I've stopped blaming myself. Yes. I still catch little snippets. Right. Now, instead of saying, oh, you should have done this, but right now I am up to, well, you should have. And then I'm like, and I shut it down. But I've gotten into that.
Yeah. That's right.
But it was, again, it came to me because of the version of me that came was in the negative, and you read it so beautifully when you said, because you see yourself in a negative light. Because I kept blaming myself at age, and that's why this is the way she came forward. Yes. You're good. You're good, woman. You're good.
But you know what? It's only because you're open. It's like you said, the virtual inner child healing retreat is not for people who want to play games and who want to sit and look pretty. Now, eventually you will get to the pretty part, but this retreat is really for you to come and be honest with yourself. And you also have to be open, because without that 2-year-old coming to you on day one, telling you she loved you, you would still be questioning today whether or not your mother loves you. The same thing, had that 12-year-old not come to you in the way that she did, negative, black and white, you wouldn't have even begun to think like, oh, I see myself. And it's not just that you saw yourself at 12 years old negatively, like you currently today, well, not today, but back then today.
Yes.
Right. You saw yourself negatively, and it's like you blamed yourself for every little thing. And like you said, even today, it's not that you don't get to that point where it's like, oh, you should have done. And now it's like, you're like, oh, you should have. And it's like, wait, nope. No, I shouldn't have.
Yes.
I love that. So if you don't mind, the 2 integration days, because I think people have questions about that, because it's like, okay, so we're live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then there's 2 days. It's kind of like, wait, what do we do in those 2 days? So in those integration days, in your opinion, don't you think those 2 days of like integrating silence is a necessary
yes. Part of it? I don't think my brain could have taken 5 days of consecutive
yes,
healing without that. And it's funny, it's not even an intermission. It isn't. Well, right. But it's not an intermission, because one day, Monday, we work together.
Yes.
The beautiful thing is I work with you and I work with the rest of the queens. Yes. Because we all work together. Because everyone in that group was there raw. Everyone was there. We had the ugly cry. We had the laughing. We had everything together. Yes. And there was no apologies for coming out raw. We are who we are. Yes. And there was never a moment that I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't. No, I just, here I am.
Yes. Yes.
But I tell you this, the days that we don't meet, you have to take that moment to yourself.
Yeah.
Because one thing is to talk and everybody, you get feedback and stuff, and it's beautiful and it's positive. But then you really have to sit what you've learned. You have to process it. So it's not that you're going to be like, oh, yeah, you're right, then, yeah, because I saw me at 3 years old and whatever. Okay. No. I mean, you really need to process. And I am grateful for those days in between. Because they help me understand me.
Yes.
Yes. Those were very, very, very poignant. Very poignant.
Yes. And part of that too is, it's like, how do you get from the 2-year-old to the 12-year-old? And it's that time in between that you take to process things and really like sit back and reflect on this information like, oh, and right. And so if you go from well, I really don't know if my mother loves me, to this revelation that, oh my gosh. And you've actually had some powerful revelations, because we obviously we still work together in hits, because you went from that retreat in March, really the end of March. So let's say like April, right?
Yes.
To not knowing day one, not knowing whether, first of all, not knowing if anything was going to happen, but then finding out that your mother loved you, to now you're at a place where you're like, because you've had, again, several breakthroughs. I'm not going to tell your story, but now you know that your mother loved you the best that she could. And she wanted to give you everything. And not only, she did give you everything. She gave you everything she had from what she had.
From what she had, exactly. But it's funny that you mentioned that the hits afterwards, because yes, I you make the breakthroughs and they're very powerful. But after, I think it was April 1st was our last day.
The 2nd, April 2nd. The 2nd. The Friday. Yep.
Yes. And it's like, you're so pumped up because you know there's so much more information.
Yes.
That you need to find out. There's so many, all of a sudden, all these little memories click and how about this and how about that? And yet, like I said, I was still questioning of my mom's love for me.
Yeah.
And like I said before, my mom was very physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. And in my mind, I always said, because I'm a mother of 3 and I love my kids to death.
Yep.
And I would never, ever even imagine being my child, right?
Uh-huh.
So then what you think? Hey, you hurt him, you don't love him. You don't care.
Yep.
They're your punching bag. They're whatever.
Yeah.
That was my thought process, like I said, for over 40 years.
Yeah.
But in May, in one of our hits in May, and it's in May, I learned, I was told by me, by all my wonderful archangels and everyone that takes care of me.
Yes.
That my mom did what she did.
Yeah.
She didn't want me to become just like her.
Ooh.
And that blew my mind. It blew, I get goosebumps. I was like, what?
Everybody was crying on that session, by the way.
And I was like, what? And then, to top it all off, it doesn't end with me. It doesn't end with my mom.
That's right.
It was brought to my attention that I have done the same to my daughter. And mind you, I don't hit my children or anything like that, but I was hard. Yes. Harder on her than I was on my sons, because she could not be like me, because I saw myself as weak. Yes. I saw myself that I could not take care, and I would be damned if my daughter was going to do the same. Yes. So I just turned around and did it in my own version. And I imagine, thinking about it now, talking to you, my mother was raised without her mom, because my mother's mom died when my mother was 12. And my grandfather was very abusive. And so she only knew things and this and that and that. And then she, okay, I guess that's what you do. I just turned it around and didn't do the physical abuse because I know what it hurt.
Yes. And
I didn't think I was hurting her. I was just making her stronger.
Yes.
I wasn't. I was hurting my daughter. Yes. And I am so grateful that I have been able to sit and talk with my daughter and explain myself to her. We have both cried. We have laughed. But she's thinking of starting a family. And she was so grateful that I was so honest with her, so that she knows why I did what I did. And she has forgiven me. And to me, I would think I wouldn't have any forgiveness, but she's opened her heart. And I'm telling you, because of it starts with my inner child healing, I've changed so many of my relations, especially with my children. And this was the first Mother's Day that I knew my mom loved me. And I went to her and I said, Mama. And she was like, yeah. And I said, Mama, you love me. And she just looked at me and started to cry. And she told me, I've loved you all of my life. But I told her, Mama, I didn't know. And we just hugged and kissed for so long. And this is the best Mother's Day of my life. Of my life. And I'm a mother. And yes, it's great. You know, your kids love you and stuff, but you know, and that it took so many years to that your parent loves you. My God. Oh my God. It was the best gift. It was the best thing ever in my life.
Yeah. And I want to highlight, because that's the importance of doing the inner child healing work, is that it's not even that it's just for you. You deciding to do the work, you healed 3 generations, and then you broke the curse.
Yes.
Right? Because your daughter is about to start a family.
Yes.
So it's not even just about you doing the work and you becoming better, but you saying that to your mother, and even acknowledging her, saying, I know you love me. Like, think of what that did to your mother's heart, right?
Yes.
And then even going to your daughter, to you, God, I didn't think I was going to be crying like this. I'm trying. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm the crying.
It's beautiful.
But then you even going to your daughter and her, and now correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your daughter say, Mommy, anytime you question something, just come and ask me, and I'll.
Yes, I am, because like I said, there's so many things coming up that I go to Abby. My daughter's name is Abby. And I'm like, Abby, you know, I did this, and I learned this, and then she looks at me like, yeah, I know that. You're just like your mother. I was like, no, I'm not. Again, okay, short story, because I know I talk a lot.
That's okay.
I bought my kids many a game called Chicken Limbo. It was a big thing back then. They were 5 and 4. They're in their 30s now. But for them, I didn't have a lot of money, and they wanted it, so I bought it. And they were like, yay, they had all the little toys that they play with. I never let them play with the Chicken Limbo. For the simple reason, and to me it was very simple. If you break it, I can't buy you another one.
Yes, right.
So we will take care of this one.
Yeah.
Mama don't have money to buy you another one. Yeah. Right now, to them, 30 years later, and mind you, I have the Chicken Limbo in storage. I still have that Chicken Limbo sealed in its box. Okay. So we had gone to storage, and the kids saw the Chicken Limbo, and they just started laughing. And they were like, oh yeah, because you can't touch the Chicken Limbo. And they made a big joke out of it. So I was laughing, like whatever. And then again, with hits, and I am so grateful for hits. Oh my God, you have no idea. I really wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have the hits afterwards.
So for those who don't know, Hits is my membership. It's called, because we're so used to calling it Hits, like we just think everybody know about Hits because Hits is so great. So Hits is my healing membership, and it stands for Healing in the Shadow. And it's where we come together and we continue our healing journeys, and we're so open. And so when we say Hits, and I'm talking about the membership. So okay, go on, B, just so people are like, wait,
so it's like Hits,
right? But anyway. I have learned through my work with Hits and the Queens and soon to be Dr. Andrea, that I live in a poor, I have a poor mentality. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't necessarily call myself a hoarder, because once is too much. I give away. But I'll buy things for myself, and then I won't use it, because if I use it, then I'll waste it, and then if I waste it, I won't have any more, and that's where money goes.
Yes.
I try not to spend money, and when I spend the money, I spend it because I'm angry, and I'm like, I work my goddamn money, I can buy whatever I want, and I'll buy it, and then I won't use it because I feel guilty that I should have saved that money.
Right.
Anyway, so back to the chicken limbo. So I'm telling Abby, Abby, I learned that I have, a poor mentality, a poor person's, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a lack mentality. I get it.
Yes. So then she goes like this, and she was like, you're just like your mother. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she goes, my mom takes care of this delicious little boy that I love, and I always give him gifts. And my mom lets him play with it for 5 minutes, and then she hangs it on the wall. And I tell her, why is his toy up there? Oh, no, because he might break. And I never pay attention to that. So when I'm telling Abby about the chicken limbo, and I'm like, the chicken limbo, she looks at me and she was like, when she says, you're just like your mother. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I called the little boy Sapito because he used to sit like a frog, and that's frog in Spanish. So she goes, look at Sapito, where are all his toys? And I was like, what do you mean, where are his toys? Where does grandma put all his toys? And I go, she hangs them up so that he doesn't break them. And I was like, woo! I could laugh about it now, but I cried for days.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And of course, I felt the guilt and the shit and the stuff. And now I just acknowledge that I do that and work towards not doing it.
Yes.
I'm not ashamed of it anymore. I'm just working towards not doing it. But my daughter says, Ma, that's why whatever I buy, I use. Yeah, I spend my money, so it is my money, and I'm going to get good use out of it. I'm like, okay.
You're right.
So she was like, but thank you for letting me know, because, like I said, I have 3 children, and each of them picked up something different.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that now.
Yes.
Understand it.
Yes.
So what each of them picked up, I was like, oh, I do that. So I sat with my daughter, because my daughter loves to buy in bulk.
Yeah.
Because she's afraid of not having.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been married 3 years, and one day I go to the house, and the husband tells me, why do we need 75 rolls of toilet paper? And I'm like, I don't know. And she comes out of the kitchen, just in case we don't have. And I was like,
yep.
So I sat her down and I was like, Mama.
Yeah.
I need some 75 rolls of toilet paper. It's 60 cents in the store, and if you don't have the 60 cents, I'll bring you one of mine. I was like, you're doing what Mama does. No, I'm not. And I was like, Mommy, what do you have? 24 things of toothpaste. Mm-hmm. Brush your teeth. She was like, oh. Yeah. And she caught herself. Yep. Yep. My oldest son is the me that won't use what he gets. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't. So everything I bought him is pristine. He keeps it in the box. I give it to him. Wow. And I'm like, but Papi, I bought you that. Let's say a watch so you can use it. But Mom, how about if it breaks? You gave it to me. Yeah. And I'm like, but Papi, no. I'm like, okay, I can't be mad at you now because I learned this from me, but this is what Mama is learning. And he looks at me like, yeah. And now I'm making him think. Yeah. So it is. And I don't have any grandchildren from either, and none of the 3 have given. So I'm like, I'm starting. We need to share. Yes. It needs to stop. So Mama's sharing. Yes. Like, okay. So every time I call them, what did you learn today? But I share with the world. I so happy with what we're doing that I would share with the world.
Yes.
As you can see, I don't stop talking, but go ahead.
No, I love it because, you know, the one thing about you is that you are this powerhouse, right? And I just think that those of us who, again, this is not to sound like I'm justifying our trauma and our pain, because I'm not. I don't think that anybody should experience, you know, some of the things that you've experienced, the things that I've experienced, right? I don't think that anybody should experience them. And that being said, I just think that those of us who go through hell, if you will, we go through that so that we can show up in a big way for those who are suffering in silence.
Yes.
Because how many years, I know for me, like I spent so much time as a little girl after the molestation happened to me, first of all, blaming myself. And then at one period, I forgot all about it. Like it just completely like left my mind until I don't even remember how it came back to my mind. And then I was just like devastated, like, whoa, this happened to me. And to your point earlier, and we'll end this interview really soon because I want to be respectful of your time. But, you know, we think that we are healing it, or we're not healing it, but we think that we're okay when we don't think about it, right? Because even at first, once, like I was a little kid, then I totally forgot about it, blocked it out. And then it came back to my attention or remembrance. And then for a while, because I wasn't necessarily dealing with it, like when I would hear other people share their stories of, you know, molestation and harassment and all, I'd be like, well, just suck it up, right? Like I was telling them stuff like, well, of course I wouldn't say like, just suck it up. But as they tell their stories, I'd be like, is that all that happened to you? Well, let me tell you what happened to me and this and that. Right. And I was just so cold. But the reason why I was that way is because I was that way with myself. And when fragments of that memory came up for me, I would even tell myself, like, Andrea, like you, minimize it, suck it up. It was not that bad. Girl, please.
It was like, please, girl, you're here.
Yes.
You're here, you're fine.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I would be like, stop your bitching. You're here. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Oh, and the big one, the people worse off than you.
Yes.
Ay, Dios mío. But, and I know we're going to cut it short, but one very important thing also, there was a lot of little things that happened to me that didn't have to be as devastating as the other things that happened to me. So it's not that everybody's trauma, you don't have to be molested or physically or mentally. Sometimes the smallest little things can trigger something. Yes. And I'm not going to think about it, but it stays there. Yeah. And it festers and it'll become something bigger and bigger if we don't acknowledge what has happened. So it doesn't have to be, oh my God, you know, newsworthy stuff. Because, and I learned this from a young lady who I'm looking at right now. My trauma is not bigger or smaller than your trauma. Trauma is trauma. Yes. Period. And I love you for that. Yes. Because and oh my God, yeah, but you didn't die. It's like, no. Yeah. You know, is you lose a coin or something. It's like, oh my God, it was just a quarter. But maybe that person's the only quarter they had, or that quarter belonged to their grandparent or something. Yep. Never know. Everybody hurts differently. Yes. Pain nonetheless.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad.
You're a great teacher.
Huh?
You are a great teacher.
Oh.
You are an amazing teacher.
You're a lovely student. I'm so glad you brought that up, B, because that's right. You know, we classify it, and we will go for, I always, when I'm on my coffee talks with Andrea, I'm always like, I'm going to go after like 5 or 6 times. And I thought that was something that just like Black people did, say bye like 5 or 6 times, say bye.
No.
Right. Now, as Hispanic, it takes longer to say goodbye than it did to leave.
Right.
An hour before you have to leave.
Yes. Exactly. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go. Then start another conversation. All right, I'm gonna go. And then start another conversation. But so this idea of trauma, and we classify it in the mental health world, at least, and now it's coming over into the secular world, and people are classifying big T trauma and little T trauma. But the thing about us classifying and compartmentalizing our trauma is that to the brain, it doesn't notice the difference between the brain doesn't look at a terrorist attack and then say, oh, this terrorist attack is worse than losing a parent or having your parents divorced or, something catastrophic that's classified as a little T trauma. Because believe it or not, like divorce is classified as little T trauma.
Really?
Yes,
Oh.
exactly. But to the kid who is attached to both parents, love them equally, a divorce is just as devastating as a terrorist attack. And so the brain doesn't know the difference between, it doesn't discriminate between, oh, this big terrorist attack or mass shooting and the divorce of a parent. The brain only knows in that moment, I feel unsafe and there's no way for me to escape. And that's what creates, and it's out of control. It's out beyond my control. That's what creates a traumatic experience when it feels unsafe, there's no way of escape, and we feel out of control.
Yes.
Right? That's how the brain goes into whether or not we begin social engagement, fight or flight, or freeze. Right? And that creates the traumatic response. So yeah, we cannot look at, well, we can do what we want to do because we're adults, right? But it's a disservice when we do take our trauma and we say, well, I've never been involved in a terrorist attack, right? I don't live in Yemen or Syria, so I'm good with just being molested by grown men when I was a little kid. You know what I mean? Like, so we say we don't have it as bad as them, but to the brain, it is as bad. Right? So we can't look at, or we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't look at our trauma. Because when it comes to healing our trauma, there is no big T and there is no little t. And anytime we separate the two, the big T and the little t, we minimize our own experience. And I'm so glad that you got that point, B. I really am. Yes. So thank you so much again for taking this time. I can talk to you, with you forever and a day.
Yes.
So thank you so much for just being so honest and so open. And you know how there's the term back in the day to say, oh, you just a straight shooter, Yes. you really are. Like with you, what I've always admired and respected about you is that what you see is what you get. You don't pretend. You don't put on airs. You listen. B gonna do what B want to do. So if B ever decides she want to put her cape back on, B's gonna put her cape back on. Although we know that B is done with that, but I'm just saying you are going to do.
I can help, but I'm not your save a hoe. I'm not saving any hoes.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, B, for spending the time. I love you and I appreciate you.
I love and appreciate you too. And for all of you who are listening, Dr. Andrea is the best.
Oh, that's so sweet.
She gives as much as you give her, she gives you in return. You leave nothing on the table. And I think that's another reason why I am so, it's like, I'll follow you anyway. Because you leave nothing on the table. You leave nothing on the table. And like I said, we've never met. And I love you more than your family.
That's right.
Your family. You know the way we always start talking, the whole group. It's like we're in the kitchen.
Yes.
The kitchen is a place where everybody meets.
But it's all like we're all sisters and cousins because we never met in person.
Never met. No. But I love you like I've known you my entire life.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And like I said, I'll follow you anywhere.
Oh, love you too, V.
Okay.